What I'm teaching in these 4 weeks will be repeated for your experience. When I was doing the outline this week, trying to cover the Eightfold Path and mindfulness, pages and pages, I realized I had created a 4-hour class. Anybody want to stay for 4 hours? No, I don't. But I say that because, taking on the task, and of course the title is the Buddhist Eightfold Path and mindfulness. So trying to take on both of those subjects in 4 weeks is impossible. And my purpose in these 4 weeks is to emphasize and focus on the tools that are helpful for us to walk the path. The corny analogy I came up with is if we were on a hike, and instead of looking at the map or even looking at the scenery, what we're going to focus on is the water bottle we have, the shoes we have, the tools we need to do the hike, to do the path. So, the Goenka, who was a great Buddhist teacher. Anybody taken a 10-day Goenka course? That's the boot camp of mindfulness, right? Yeah, it was 10 days, really intensive. But Goenka, who was the teacher, he once said, the Buddha did not teach Buddhism. The Buddha taught a way of life. And matter of fact, even the term Buddhism didn't come about until the 19th century. It was Western scholars going to Sri Lanka, India, that actually coined the term, because up till the 19th century, what we call Buddhism, and it's really Buddhisms, many different traditions, that was called the way, or the path. And that's why what is in common for all the traditions is the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. So, does anybody remember, or you probably know, what are the Four Noble Truths? Start with
Life is suffering. There's a cause of that suffering. There is an end to that suffering. And there's a path to that.
Yep. And, we might say that there is suffering in life as opposed to life is suffering, because when you think about it, all of life is not suffering. There is suffering, but there's also joy and goodness, and, it's a mixed bag. So those are the four, and that last noble truth, that the path, the Eightfold Path, is a part of the noble truths which address how we can not suffer. So last week, I focused on what they call the first bucket, which was right view and right intention. And I was suggesting, a way to simply think about right view and right intention is that it's pointing in the direction where we're going. That's the ultimate, is right view and right intention. And then the second bucket is, so there's Eightfold Path, but they divide it up into 3 buckets. The first is the wisdom of right view and right intention. The second is what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the ethics. It's the way we live our life in very specific, concrete ways. And I'm going to just highlight that and then spend more time actually doing the practice that I'm suggesting is helpful to walk the path, the mindfulness tools themselves. So what is the second bucket of the Eightfold Path? It's right speech, right livelihood, and right actions. Okay? And one way to summarize it is when you talk about what is right speech, it's speech that is true, that's necessary, that's kind, and that it's timely. So something we say can be true, but it may not be the right time to say it. Or it may be true, but it might not be kind. So what the Buddha taught around speech is, as it is for all the Eightfold Path, is to do no harm, or to do as little harm as you can. So right speech, and then right livelihood, very simply, is to do a job that is beneficial to you and other people, and living beings, actually. And that's not always so easy. You know, we all get, if you work for a corporation, or you're in a career where it's mixed, you know, the ethic is really about doing the least amount of harm that you can. And then the third aspect of this bucket of Eightfold Path is right action. And this is where what's called the precepts come in. It's basically abstaining from harmful actions like killing and stealing and sexual misconduct. So this bucket of these three, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, is really the Buddhist teaching on how we live in the world. And again, one way to summarize it is to do no harm as best we can. Now, for tonight, to move into what I want to emphasize is the tools for living in the world with the Eightfold Path, is there's a couple things that all the Eightfold Path has in common, which is motivation or intention, and then awareness and skills. So if you're going to have right speech, you have to be motivated to care about how your speech impacts other people, or you as well. And so you need the motivation and the intention, but you also need mindfulness and you need skills, and that's what we're going to focus on tonight. So I'm rattling on and on. Any questions or comments at this point? Yes.
The way that you described right speech, is that, so are the gates of speech something that comes from Buddhism, or have you heard of the gates of speech? Because that's exactly what they are.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even know the context in which I first read about them, but I wasn't sure if that was directly tied to the Eightfold Path, or if it was an interpretation of, or taken from Buddhism and put into a different context.
Yeah, I haven't heard that term, gates of speech, but it makes sense. You know, it's a way to think about our speaking as a gate that opens or closes. Yeah. Well, you know, it's pretty common to hear this description. You know, when you're really talking about how to talk, again, is it timely? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And, you know, as one scholar pointed out, it's unlikely that you and I go around every day killing or having sexual misconduct, or, you know, I mean, we could, but probably not. But we speak all the time. So, and we speak all day long, usually. So the impact of our speech is probably going to be an area where we have the possibility to do more harm, particularly since some of us, me included, particularly before I started practicing, what I would say would go right from here, right out my mouth, and not stop in between. And I got in a lot of trouble when I was young because, I felt like, well, I have a right to say whatever I think, and it's tough luck. I almost got fired once for mouthing off to a boss. I mean, that did teach me a lesson. And I'm going to use an example of how the tools of mindfulness specifically can be used for, let's say, speech. And I'm going to use a personal example. So given that my conditioning has been, as a child, as a young adult, and probably into adulthood, to have a thought that go right out my mouth. That's why my partner always says that it would be a blessing if the universe taught me to talk less. And he's right. He's right. But, so as I began to practice, and not only just intellectually understanding what right speech was about, but beginning to get the skills to become aware of what I was thinking and feeling before it went here, out there. And we all have conditioning. So as a child, I remember my mom used to, she could be very critical, but she learned to catch herself. And in our family, the family comes from Alsace-Lorraine, so there's a German element. And my mom would, when she was getting critical, she would say, oh, there's the Didion. That was the family, because all the relatives were critical, negative. I experienced that. And there is some evidence that our personalities and our conditioning and traits are something we inherit. So I did grow up in a world where the first thing you did is be critical. And, I retired as a psychotherapist of 50 years. That skill of really noticing in a critical way what people were doing, what they were saying, that was a good skill to have as a therapist, because I could notice things about people that other people would miss. But the trouble is that when you don't bring mindfulness to that, you're likely to say what you think. So here's an example. I'm with a friend, and this is a friend who has some long friendship, but there's a little bit of a struggle, okay, for lots of reasons. And in my conditioning, it is to be competitive with this person, to be critical. And so when I'm with this person, most of the time it's really joyful, but some of the time it's irritating because I disagree, or I feel like I should assert my opinion. But what I've learned to do over the years of practice is when I'm with this person and there's something, we're talking about, I'm really monitoring, see, hear, feel, like I taught last week. And what do I mean? Well, I can be aware that I'm hearing myself while we're talking together. I'm hearing something like, well, that's ridiculous, or I disagree, or there they go again, I'm hearing myself say that, but I don't need to say it, thank goodness. Or I'm having an image of something that would, if I described it in the conversation, would really be a roadblock, would be a break in the relationship. And I've done it enough where I've said things that have hurt people's feelings, or when I'm not being mindful. And the other thing, so the see is the images that might pop up, or I'm aware of what I'm telling myself in the moment, and therefore I don't have to say it, because I can just be aware. And then the other thing is the emotions that come up in the body. I can begin to feel like whatever it is that's happening, and I can be aware of it. So what I'm describing is the skill of mindfulness. And, the great philosopher Viktor Frankl, Now, Viktor Frankl survived the concentration camp in Germany and went on to write a philosophy and a way of really working with yourself. And he once said, this is a quote, "Between the stimulus and response is a gap, and in that gap is our freedom to be fully human." So between stimulus and response is a gap, and in that gap is the freedom to be fully human. So in terms of your experience, where do you experience the gap? Anybody describe that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
It seems like it's the freedom to be human is to make a choice, to have a choice.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And you know, a lot of times we have what's called automaticity, right? We think something and we say it. An emotion comes up, we act on it. You know, we often call that reacting as opposed to responding. So where's the gap in your experience, do you think? Yes?
I think when feeling the emotion that comes up is where like the gap feels like where the gap is. Between like, you know, when I hear something or think something versus saying the thing, there's like the whether it's a visceral thing or the emotion that comes up, and that's kind of the
Yeah, exactly. There's a moment of awareness in which you have a choice as opposed to just reacting. And we're going to call this as a skill equanimity. Equanimity as a mindfulness skill means that you don't have to cling to an experience, hang on to it or be stuck by it, and you don't have to push it away. You can actually just be present for it and decide in a moment, it can be seconds, is it true? Do I need to do anything with it? And you know, what I'm describing is one of the skills of mindfulness, is that equanimity. Now in English, equanimity is sometimes misunderstood as, well, I'm just chilled out and don't care about anything. And that's not really what equanimity is. It's a balance. In that moment, and I was using my own experience, is when I have that thought, oh, there we go again, or I'm going to criticize or object to what my friend is talking about. There's that moment I'm aware of the thought or the emotion, and I pause, because that's the equanimity. And then in that second, I can decide to say something or not say something.
And then there's power in that too. So
Huge power. What? Say more about that.
Yeah, so if I'm aware, and now I can choose, then I have the power to decide and to have my own agency.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and again, as Viktor Frankl says, the freedom to be fully human.
Yeah, I was just going to say along with what she said, but it takes like an intentional awareness, I think, and I almost think about some other practices I've been involved in, almost prepare myself each day to go out into the battle of the traffic in the world and the jobs and the people, and prepare myself to remember that I have a choice, and that because if I don't have that awareness that I have a choice, or I haven't prepared myself. And it used to be when I was younger, it was thought reaction, and it was just, and now as I've had some practice, but I fail a lot, or at least I do, sometimes I'm successful at remembering I'm not responsible for my thoughts, and knowing that I don't have to, like you said, I don't have to be right.
Yes. Well, tonight we're going to focus on a technique that you can use anywhere, anytime, that is skill-based, and I know for a fact, because I've been practicing a long time, and I no longer, go from here out there. Sometimes, but most of the time not. So we're going to look at a way specifically to practice to develop that as well. Let's see, I think you and then you. Yeah.
when you have that space, that presence, and you're aware of your thoughts that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
What do you do with it? Let it sit there, kind of like say if you're like, oh, I don't like this, but you can't say you can't say it in that situation, but you don't want to also say, oh no, I should really like this. You don't want to suppress it either.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Great question. So when you have a thought or an emotion, and what do you do with it once you are recognizing the equanimity? Well, what you will do depends on the judgment or choice you make. Like she was just saying, the power of deciding it's skillful or helpful to say it or not say it. Equanimity is and we all experience it. It's kind of a funny term in English, but everybody experiences equanimity. There are those moments where, again, the definition is you're not actively pushing something away and you're not clinging. When you think about what the Buddha taught that suffering is either clinging or aversion, right? So when you can learn to rest in that moment of equanimity, then you have the freedom to answer your question, decide what you're going to do. So it doesn't mean you always ignore what you're feeling or thinking, and it doesn't mean you don't do something. And I would suggest that when you have equanimity with your experience, you can be more effective in the world, in changing the world, because you're not being driven by anger or greed or all the poisons the Buddha taught. You had and then
so I see a lot say and have the talk and meditation, and I just brought up the fact that I really appreciated the meditation because after a period of time, it gives you that 5 or 6 seconds to it slows things down, and those thoughts come up, and then I feel like you have a choice about how you want to proceed. If it requires, a conversation, or you swearing something, you can divorce, you can make a choice. Versus when you're all revved up and something comes out of your mouth, you didn't really want to say that, and it was just, you're not really, you haven't given yourself that place or that space.
Yeah.
But I kind of came into some controversy with it because I think the instructor just felt like, no, you just have to the discipline is just coming from loving kindness. Like you shouldn't be making a thought or a choice. It's just one, or maybe I didn't understand it. It just didn't sort of sync with me. I'm like, I thought that was a good thing that you were able to pause in order to, make a choice that is more appropriate to the situation.
Right. Well, one way to think about that is the more we practice the Dharma, the more loving kindness and compassion become the default states that we live in. So, in a way, as you develop those qualities, you are going to more often come from a loving place. Now, that doesn't mean you won't do hard things. Sometimes you have to, tough love, or, somebody's begging money on the street and they're going to go feed their addiction. Is it a loving thing to give that person money? Well, you have to decide. Mm-hmm. So it may be that the default state is coming from kindness or compassion, but you still have to be mindful of what to do. What does that mean to really be loving? What should I say? What should I do? Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. You had
I've always been one of these people where people will say, well, tell us how you really feel, And, but I'm getting a lot better at curbing things that come out of my mouth. But the thing that I'm having difficulty with, and you said with practice it'll get easier, but I can't control my tone and my facial expression. It still leaks out somehow, even if it doesn't come out of my mouth necessarily. So, but that will come with practice.
Yeah, it will. And kudos to you. You're you're an honest person, you know?
I was going to say, isn't that what we're supposed to be?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, and as we become more mindful and aware and skillful, we can choose how to show up, and we'll be more consistent. Yes, in the back.
Yeah, could you explain a bit more about what being human means in this
Ah.
context? So I mean, I'm understanding, I mean, at least in this line of thought, that being human is the ability to be mindful, ability to make a choice, ability to have equanimity in the moment rather than, an animalistic stimulus response.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by being human, or is there more to that?
Well, there's probably many different ways to think about what it means to be human. And what did Viktor Frankl mean? I don't know. We'd have to read him. But, the way I think about it is, what are the qualities that make us human beings as opposed to our animal friends who are, our relatives too. But, we have rationality for one thing. We have, animals may have emotions as well. But, some, like Stoic philosophy, would say that what makes us human is the ability to reason. And there's probably a lot of different definitions. But I would say that learning to be mindful is a part of being fully human.
I think that leads more to consciousness, being able to observe the self.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So when we are in a more reactive state, it does serve us in the moment in the sense that we're seeking relief from discomfort.
Right.
But it has consequences.
Yep.
So in this practice, is the relief that we be harnessing or achieving the equanimity, or is it something else? Because it's really we're seeking immediate relief, but maybe this, with practice can be that immediate relief that we maybe need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's the self-soothing that we need in that moment.
Yeah.
Is it equanimity that gives us the relief that replaces the relief of reactivity?
Well, I think the equanimity puts us in a position to decide what's best. So let's say there's discomfort and you want relief. Well, if you're reactive, you're going to just get relief, and who knows what damage you might do. It could be, like I did, say something to my boss, that was a relief, but I almost got fired. And I think about it now, I'm horrified that I had so little awareness. So the equanimity, it can be in a moment, but again, the definition is that you're not clinging to what you're experiencing and you're not pushing it away. You're just balanced, and then you can make choices. And I know this sounds real theoretical, and it is, but you experience it, and you can actually develop it as a skill as well. So, speaking of, let's do the most important part. Let's see what I've forgotten. Besides Frankl's quote, I love, don't believe everything you think and feel. And my director at UCLA, Diana Winston, used to say, especially in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. I had that just recently. Watch the news or listen to the news and then try to sleep. And then I woke up in the morning and I realized, whoa, I was really catastrophizing. The sun's shining, it's not as bad. But I think that it does speak to the equanimity we're talking about. Don't believe everything you think. And then the other thing I really like when it's said that I'm responsible for what I think and feel. I'm responsible. Not because I'm at fault, because a lot of it's conditioning and habit. But I'm responsible because I'm the only one who can change it. You can't change me. I can change me. It doesn't mean I'm guilty. It means that my agency, my power, is in these skills and practices. So, what am I talking about? So last week, I began to teach the technique, which is called See, Hear, Feel. Starla's favorite technique, right? Starla and I worked at Sharp together for many years, and she's a practitioner of this stuff. See, Hear, Feel is an amazing mindfulness tool. And I was challenging people last week, can you think of any human experience that can't be categorized as see, hear, feel? Dissociation. Well, even then I would ask somebody, how do you know you're dissociated? How would you describe it? It's because there's a physical feeling, right? And an idea, a thought. So why do I say everything we experience is see, hear, feel? And it's because this technique or this way of thinking about mindfulness involves every experience. And you can experience it right now. We're going to do what's called the tour of the senses. And we're going to do see out, which is objects in the world. See in is the images that pop up when we do visual thinking. I can't believe I spent most of my life before I came across this form of practice not being clear about thoughts are either visual or auditory. You're either seeing images in your mind or you're talking to yourself. And we do that all day long. We're always talking to ourselves. Yes?
Are you just mentioning the senses, so like smell and taste?
Yeah.
Included?
So I'll get to those. Those are feel. So see out is the objects in the world. See in are the images that pop up when we think, and they're not always there. Sometimes there's just a restful emptiness, but a lot of times there's an image. Hear out, hear the sounds out there. And hear in is what we're telling ourselves all day long, always talking to ourselves. Not always, but a lot. And then feel, to answer your question, feel out is physical sensations. That includes touch, taste, smell, everything physical that we would say. That's feel out. And feel in are our emotions. That emotions show up in the body. And we know that when you get angry, if you had to describe to somebody what you look like or feel like when you're angry, you might say, well, I get red in the face, I feel tension in my chest. You know what it's like to feel angry. So, what this practice, see, hear, feel does is it gives us awareness that we need to follow the Eightfold Path. To be mindful and aware of whatever we're experiencing, and to do it with the skills, the three skills that we really define mindfulness as three skills. And again, this is all theoretical, but as we do the meditation, I'll give you an experience of it, okay? So, three skills. Concentration, that's just the ability to choose what to pay attention to. So when I have a thought that's negative and I don't want to say it to you, I'm going to use the skill of concentration to focus on that and to know that I'm thinking it. And then the second skill is clarity, which is just being aware, tracking experience in real time. It's the details of our experience. That's the second skill. Third skill is the equanimity. That we begin to get a sense, we slow down our minds, even though they can still be speedy, that we begin to notice what we're seeing, hearing, and feeling. And there's that moment where we know it. And that's the point of freedom. That's where we can make a choice. Yes.
I'm still having a little, I guess, difficulty discerning between concentration and clarity. Like concentration, like I'm focusing on something. Clarity is like I'm seeing what that is, but that seems very similar.
Yeah, so her question is she's having trouble distinguishing between these two skills, concentration and clarity. Well, the definition, the concentration is just choosing what to pay attention to. It's the choosing. So I might choose to pay attention to that tanka, and then I may pay attention to you, choose to pay attention to you. I just did. That's concentration. And there's those moments where I'm really looking or hearing or seeing. And then the clarity is to notice details. Or even notice what's the difference between hearing a sound and seeing an object. Noticing the difference. That's the clarity. So clarity, by definition, is tracking our experience in real time. And then equanimity is neither pushing away or hanging on to our experience. So how about let's do a tour of the senses so you can experience it, because otherwise this is all talk, okay? And as I was suggesting at the beginning, that learning the skill is vital to following the Eightfold Path. Not just understanding it or having it as a philosophy or a theory, but knowing how to operationalize it in your real life. And that's why these skills are important. So let's go with me on this little tour. And first we'll do see out sights in the world. Pick one object in the room that's interesting and just rest your attention there. And that's the concentration. And notice the details, color, shape, whatever it is. That's the clarity. And then you've already been practicing equanimity, whether you knew it or not, because there's other sensations coming in, sounds, feelings in the body. If you were looking at the object, you just let those other things come and go. That's how you experience equanimity. Okay? So, see out is the object. Okay? See in is my favorite thing. Picture, with eyes open or closed, your favorite food. Can you see it in your imagination? And you might notice where it shows up. Our brains can be different. Some people, it shows up like right here behind their eyes. And we'll call that image space. For me, it's on my right side, for whatever reason. The bowl of ice cream that I just am imagining is right here. I can see it. So it's a see in. When I'm visually thinking, I can be aware of that. What did you imagine and where was it? If you don't mind sharing. Yes?
Macaroni and cheese, but it's it's in the back of my head.
Oh, it's in the back of your head.
No, isn't that where the sepal lobe is in the back?
What's that?
Isn't that where the sepal lobe is in the back of the head?
Yeah. So it shows up in different people at different places. So, mac and cheese. Oh, I can picture that right now. Yes.
Pepperoni pizza.
Oh.
But it's weird because I have my eyes closed and I can kind of visualize it, but then when I try to focus on where I'm seeing it, it's almost like I can't see it.
Yeah.
I almost have to I can't describe it because I can't see just a visual picture.
Yeah.
But if I focus too hard, it's almost like the picture goes away.
So there's the equanimity. If you try to cling to it, it disappears. Or if you try to get rid of it, we're often told, don't think that. Like right now, don't think of a pink elephant. Try not to think of a pink elephant. So the equanimity is you just allow it. And visual thinking is really whispery. It comes and goes. So the ability to notice when it's there and to notice when it's not there is the equanimity. Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely. Yes?
What if you think about it and then you can almost taste it? Like what is it all like?
Yeah, so she's saying, what if you think about it and you can almost taste it? Well, I've had experience, I didn't right now, but at times I've imagined my favorite food and I start salivating. You know, I mean, it's incredible how powerful the mind is. It can actually make the body have physiological reactions. So there's a see in, image of food, and a feel out. I can actually have a sensation. Anybody else want to share what you pictured and where it was? Yes.
Lasagna.
I'm sorry?
Lasagna.
Oh, lasagna.
Like,
Oh, I picture it right now.
yeah, I see it like in front of me, but it's kind of like translucent, like almost like a super imposing image. So it's not clear or concrete.
Right.
But I think I can taste it more than I can see.
Ah, okay. But you know it's lasagna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's enough
Well,
there.
I'm like scanning my brain, like, what do I like? And then I pick one.
Yeah. But and you can actually see it, but it's whispery. Yeah, it comes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes.
Oh no, like a little embarrassing that I don't normally eat fast food, but like the other day I had a Whopper I hadn't had in a while. And it's just like, I guess what really drew it to me is like that bold pictures that they have of it that make it look so much better than what it actually is. But
Yes.
there's a certain taste to it. And I was visualizing the Buddha over here and exactly the way you said on the right side. And the more I tried to focus on the burger, it just dissipated.
Yeah, right. And again, if you try to hang on to it, it disappears. Or it changes as well. So we just did see out, objects in the world, see in. Let's do hear out. Listen to the sounds around us. Just focus with concentration, choosing what to listen to. So that's hear out. Hear in is the talk we do to ourselves, okay? And a simple way to light it up, and notice where you are hearing it. There's a talk space in our brains, not in our brains, but in our imagination. Recite your phone number silently to yourself. Can you hear it? And where is it showing up? Can you locate it? Start at the top of your head? Yeah. How about others? Where's talk space showing up? Yes.
Mine's right in the middle, actually in front of seeing. Seeing is in the back, hearing is in the middle of my head.
Great. Yeah, and my talk space is like on my right ear. I know my brain just goes right, but here. So the reason that it's really important to start identifying where you hear or see in, hear in or see in, is because you'll start to get used to that's where your attention goes when you're having thoughts. And again, if mindfulness is about recognizing what you're thinking and feeling and experiencing, when you get used to going there, it gets easier and easier to identify it, to notice it. So let's do real quickly, feel out and in. Feel out is any sensation in the body. Notice your feet. Notice your back against the chair. Notice any physical sensation happening. And just be aware of that. Let's feel out. And feel in are our emotions. And just check in. Maybe you have an emotion that you can identify. Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're bored. Okay. Maybe you're happy. Maybe you're not. And if you want to light up an emotion, feel in, put a smile on your face. I know I look silly, but do you feel it? Yeah, it's a slight touch of emotion. So, long story short, we have the ability to be totally aware, although we can't be always aware, of what we're thinking and feeling, and in our emotions, in our bodies, in our thoughts. So we can use this tool of practice to be totally aware of what we're experiencing. And the more we use concentration, choosing what to pay attention to, clarity, tracking our experience for details, and allowing it to be there. You know, when lasagna comes up as an image, if you try to hang on to it, poof, it goes. You use equanimity. Just let it be there until it isn't there anymore, and it's okay. But this requires practice, and that's what we'll do right now. Okay. So I want to do about a good 5 minutes, or maybe more, a couple minutes more. And this is called See, Hear, Feel Everything. So here's the instruction. With your eyes open or closed, whatever's best for you, allow your attention just to roam freely. And when it lands, when you notice what you're experiencing, decide, is it see, hear, or feel? And you can actually use the label. So, and I'll demonstrate in a moment. You can use the label see, or hear, or feel when you experience it. And then just allow it to be there, and then let go, or let be, and notice what comes next. And then repeat the sequence. Notice what comes next. Decide, is it see, hear, or feel, in or out. Label it, see, or hear, or feel. Wait a moment. When it disappears or something else catches your attention, then pay attention to that. So here's what it's going to look like, and the pacing supports equanimity. So you can see me actually doing it, and I'll label it, okay? So see, hear, feel, see in, just had an image of ice cream, okay, popped up, and I would call that a see. I can feel my smile, feel. So you notice how I'm allowing my attention to just move freely. When I can label it, I do. And then I let it go and notice what comes next, okay? Now, what somebody last week reported, and it's common, is sometimes our brains are so busy, and there's does anybody know it's like 1 billion bits of sensory data are coming into our brains at every second? Yeah, second. That's what the neuroscientists tell us. So you can't possibly get everything. So when we do this practice, if you begin to get flooded with too much, just pick one sense. Just pick see, and just keep going back to it here, okay? Because it'll calm the brain down. Okay, shall we try it? So assume a mindfulness posture, which is just to be comfortable but alert. So maybe stretching up the spine and relax the jaw, relax the shoulders. ready, just allow your attention to move freely. And when you notice, decide, is it see, hear, or feel? Use the label if you want. And then notice what comes next. And then use the label again. And if you can, do it at a steady pace. We'll do 5 minutes. So is it see? Is it hear? Is it feel? And you can re-note the experiences. In other words, you may be seeing something and you can go back and see again. Or hear and hear again. Or feel and feel again. And all that re-noting. So maybe this last minute, if your eyes are closed, why don't you open them and keep doing see, hear, feel with the eyes open. See out, see in, hear out, hear in, feel out, feel in. Okay, but what'd you experience? Yes.
Yeah, I experienced that you can't separate the three in the sense that, for example, I would be feeling, I decided to go through a feeling at one point of pretty much nothingness, just calmness as a feeling.
In your body?
But the minute, in my body,
Uh-huh.
but the minute I then had to define it, what am I, this is a feeling, I could hear that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I decided, okay, I go to a peaceful place, maybe a forest somewhere with water running. So you could feel it, but when I defined it again, I had to hear it. But on the other hand, I could see the water running.
Yes.
So it seems like all three kind of integrate together all at the
Yes.
same time, and you can't really separate them. At least that's what I got at.
Well, I would say, you're right, but I would say that you can separate them because you just described several different experiences. You could hear the water or maybe see it, and you can also feel. Those are different experiences. And what I would say is that means you're really being mindful. Instead of saying, well, I imagined, a peaceful lake. Well, that doesn't tell us much, but if you could say, I see an image of a lake and I felt the peacefulness in my body, and I heard myself saying, I gotta go there on vacation next week, We would say you're really being mindful and fully present and fully human, I would say, because you're experiencing, all these experiences. Yeah. How about others? Anybody else? Yes.
I found with my eyes open, I didn't feel as much. Yeah.
And the reason I suggested it, if we had more time to practice, I would suggest it more. But you can do this practice anywhere, anytime. That's the beauty. We usually are trained to meditate seated with our eyes closed, right? Well, how can you be driving your car, with your eyes closed? You can't. And you may or may not be, you're not going to be seated when you're walking. So see, hear, feel, because it captures every human experience, you can do it anywhere, anytime. You were going to, yeah.
So what if you feel something and you want to change it? Because I realized I was heading down the rabbit hole. I was like, I feel tension in my shoulders. I'm going to breathe into it. I'm like, that's me talking to myself here. So I was labeling what I was trying to change.
Yeah. So she was just saying that she felt tension, and then she heard herself say, I want to change that.
I breathed into it. And then I was like, how far do I go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah.
Or do I
this is where the equanimity comes in. At some point when you realize you're struggling or efforting your experience, you let be. And then just let it show up. In the next 2 weeks, there are 2 more weeks of this series, we're going to be working more with see, hear, feel. It does take practice, although this week, what I would suggest you do is catch yourself seeing, hearing, or feeling in a moment, okay? That moment where you really are aware of that picture of pizza, okay? Just pay attention to it, because you're developing your skill of concentration, clarity, and equanimity. So you won't get totally aware of everything, but in daily life, when you're driving, when you're walking, when you're talking, you can begin to sharpen your own awareness. And that leads us to having a greater ability to follow the Eightfold Path as well. So for home practice, and we're just about out of time, what I would suggest is if you can do some of this see, hear, feel in a seated meditation, and that cuts down on the activity. Maybe do 5 or 10 minutes, just what we did, see, hear, feel, and you're training your brain. And then what we call micro hits, do moments when you're out in the world. Get in the car, stop for a moment, and check in. Am I feeling myself sitting in the car? Am I hearing the engine? Or if it's EV, the buzz, okay? My Kona has a buzz. Or whatever you're doing, just catch yourself experiencing and label it, okay? And then the other thing is, if you want more training in this particular technique and form of meditation, here's the reference. You want to Google Unified Mindfulness, unifiedmindfulness.com. When you go on the website, you'll see in the menu, Learn Unified Mindfulness, and click on that, and there's a core training. It's free. It's modules of cartoons and little self-quizzes that will teach you all these basics, and it's perfectly free. So unifiedmindfulness.com, click on Learn and then it's the core training, okay? And then, yep, that's it. And hopefully come back next week and we will be doing that third bucket, which is mindfulness and concentration, the Eightfold path, okay? The guardian of the temple, Erica, has some announcements for us.
Hello everyone, my name's Erica and I'm tonight's host. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction problems, and our food redistribution program meets every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book that you like, feel free to borrow it and bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or your cushion before you head out, and if a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be very helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.
Thanks, Erica. Thank you, everybody. Please come back.